Okay, let's kick things off. Imagine finding this old box, right? And inside it's full of these handwritten documents from way back, like the 1870s.
Brittle paper, faded ink,
Yeah,
the real deal.
exactly. And it's not just random stuff, it's the actual plans, the step-by-step, down to the rivet instructions for building a county jail.
It really is. More than just blueprints. It's like a window into how they thought the tech they had or didn't have.
Yeah, the challenges they faced, it's all there.
So these documents were diving into specifications, bids, contracts, even old newspaper bits. They tell the story of the Nemaha County Jail, Kansas, 1879.
Right. This amazing collection comes mostly from the Nemaha County Historical Society. So today we're digging deep into that box.
Our mission really is to pull out the fascinating bits. What went into this building? What did secure actually mean back then? Find the stories hidden in the details.
Okay, so Nemaha County, Kansas,
Huh.
late 1870s. Why did they suddenly need a new jail? Was it like falling apart?
Well, the interesting thing is, it wasn't just some officials deciding behind closed doors. The sources show it went to a public vote. The people of Nemaha County actually voted on building a new jail. That happened in the fall of 1878.
A public vote on a jail? Seriously, how did that go?
It passed. And not just barely by a huge majority.
Yeah.
12,277 votes in favor. So there was real public backing for it.
Wow.
And the timing was apparently good, too.
Yeah.
The county was described as well-fixed financially, so they had the money and the public mandate.
Right place, right time, public support. So who gets the job? Who builds this thing?
They brought in specialists, a company called P.J. Pauly and Bro out of St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
These guys specifically built jails. They worked through some agents, C.L. Wundt & Co., but Pauly was the name in jail tech. They came to the county commissioners June 2nd, 1879, with a few different options.
Options, like different sizes or security levels?
Different capacities, yeah. They offered 4 cells, built in 2 tiers, for $10,643.
Okay.
Or 3 cells in just 1 tier for $9,943.
A bit cheaper.
And then a smaller 2-cell option for $9,343. So scale versus budget.
And they had this bold promise about their cells, didn't they? Something about being secure.
Absolutely. This was their big selling point. They basically said, you don't pay us until you're completely satisfied.
Really?
Yeah. Until the county agreed their cell work was, and this is a quote, proof against saws and files, and that it is perfect in all respects as represented.
Saw and file proof.
Well,
In 1879. That's a heck of a claim.
it really was. Confidence in their patented steel.
So which one did Nemaha County go for?
They signed the contract the very next day, June 3rd. They picked the middle one, 3 cells, 1 tier, for that $9,943 peeler cash price.
Okay, the 3-cell option. And the contract wasn't just for the cells, right? It was the whole building.
Correct. It was comprehensive.
Yeah.
Pauly had to build the whole brick and stone structure that was Exhibit C. They had to supply the doors and window guards, Exhibit B, and, of course, manufacture and install those special cells, and the corridor that was Exhibit A.
Got it. Covered everything. And there was something about freight costs.
Yeah, just a small detail. The county paid the shipping, the freight and drayage for the cells themselves,
Okay.
and then they deducted that amount from Pauly's final payment. Suggests the cells were probably built in St. Louis and shipped out.
Makes sense. How long did they have to build it?
Pretty quick turnaround, actually. Work had to start within 20 days of signing that contract in early June.
So by late June.
Right. And they had to finish by October 1st, 1879. So basically the whole summer.
That's fast for a whole building and specialized installation. And they needed something unusual for the cell foundation.
Yeah, this is one of those great details you find. Pauly had to provide 7 bars of old railroad iron.
Old rails.
Each 12.5 feet long. They were specifically required to set the heavy steel cells on top of them. Kind of resourceful, using existing heavy-duty material.
Definitely resourceful. And I bet the county wanted some assurance Pauly would actually do all this.
Oh, yeah. There was a bond. Pauly and Bros and their agents put up a $20,000 bond.
$20,000. That's more than double the contract price.
Exactly. A serious guarantee they perform faithfully and meet all those detailed specs.
Okay, so the deal is done. The bond is posted. Let's get into the building itself. The Exhibit C plans. What did the overall structure look like?
It was basically 2 parts joined together. A 2-story section, that was the jailer's residence.
Like an attached house?
Pretty much.
Right.
And then a 1-story extension behind that, which held the actual cell room. All brick, built on a stone foundation. Dimensions were roughly 31, almost 32 feet across the front, and maybe 41 or possibly 51 feet deep. There's a slight ambiguity there.
And they started right at the bottom with digging.
Very specific instructions for excavation. Digging trenches for foundations, a cellar only under the residence part.
No cellar under the cells.
No. And separate holes for a cistern and a cesspool. They even specified using the dug-up earth for grading around the building and hauling away any extra dirt and all the construction debris.
Thinking ahead, what about the foundation stones?
Had to be the best quality limestone, laid in mortar. And the footings, the base layers were detailed, like 8 inches thick, each layer wider than the one above it, stepping out. Different widths specified for the residence walls versus the heavier cell room walls.
Stronger support for the cell block area.
Makes sense. They mentioned using through stones, lower down, stones going all the way through the wall thickness, and rubble work but done properly, filling all the gaps, keeping it plumb and level.
And the stonework you could actually see above ground?
That was called range work, laid in neat, regular courses 8 to 12 inches thick. The face was pitched-faced, kind of rough, but with clean joints.
Okay.
And things like window sills and door sills had exact sizes, slopes, or washes to shed water, all specified to be bush-hammered, given that textured finish.
So attention to detail even on the finish. Now, under the cells themselves, you said no cellar, so what was there?
Concrete, a layer of concrete under the entire cell area, made of spackle and mortar, with the mortar being 1/3 cement. A solid, rigid pad for those heavy steel units.
Right. Different from the rest of the foundation. Now, the brickwork, that was the main material.
Yes, and again, very specific. Best well-burned, merchantable brick. A uniform dark red for the outside. Laid with tight joints, no more than 38 inch.
Standard stuff so far.
But here's something interesting. The exterior walls of the cell room were hollow.
Hollow walls. For a jail? Why? Security risk.
Doesn't seem like it was seen that way. They were bonded together with header bricks every 6th course. It was likely for maybe insulation or perhaps ventilation, creating an air gap. The joints inside the hollow space were finished flush.
Huh. Okay. And the inside of the cell room walls?
Those were finished differently, flush jointed and well rubbed. And the specs explicitly say, will not be plastered.
Makes sense. Plaster can be chipped away.
Exactly. Other brick details included turning arches properly, putting in wood bricks for carpenters to nail trim to later, and building that cesspool, 8 feet across, 10 feet deep, lined with brick laid dry, interestingly.
Dry bricks for a cesspool lining?
Yeah, then arched over the top with brick laid in cement and a capstone. Maybe the dry lining was for drainage. Unclear.
And the floor inside the cell room?
Paved with hard brick, laid flat on a couple of inches of sand. Simple, tough.
Okay, let's move up to the wood. Framing, roofs.
Standard stuff mostly. Joist sizes, rafter sizes, wall plates, bridging between joists for stiffness, doubling up lumber around openings, pine sheeting on the roof, ready for the metal covering.
And the residence part had that portico, right? To look more like a house.
Yeah, detailed plans for that. Big 10 by 10 posts, molded caps and bases, cornice with brackets, chamfered edges on the posts. Nice tongue and groove ceiling underneath, nailed secretly. Pine floor.
What about plaster? Just in the residence, I assume.
Mostly. 2 coats of brown mortar plus a smooth plaster of Paris finish coat in the main residence areas.
But
The specs single out the female and insane cells. These seem to be specific rooms within the residence, not the main steel cells. These rooms got 3 coats of brown mortar, neatly floated off, a different, maybe tougher or smoother finish.
different treatment for different intended occupants, even within the residence part. Fascinating. Metalwork, roofs, gutters.
Galvanized iron cornice on the house part. The roofs themselves, residence, jail section, portico, all covered with 1X roofing plate. That's tin-plated iron sheeting, laid with standing seams, soldered properly, gutters specified, downspouts flashing, all the water-shedding details.
Makes sense. How about water supply and sewage, besides the cesspool?
They built a big cistern, 8 feet across, 11 feet deep, brick, arched top, coated inside with cement mortar, had an overflow pipe.
Okay, for rainwater, presumably, and sewage pipes.
A system of 6-inch clay pipe, described as ventified, maybe meaning vented or vitrified clay running from the kitchen sink, and again from those specific female and insane cells in the residence.
So, plumbing for those specific rooms again?
Yeah, those pipes connected to an 8-inch main pipe leading out to the cesspool, and it was laid with a steep slope. 3 inches of fall for every foot of pipe. Gravity-powered drainage.
That's quite a slope. Windows and doors throughout. Any differences?
Lots of details there. Sizes, types of frames, box frames versus plank frames. Glass sizes differed: bigger panes, like 14 by 18 inches in the residence, smaller 8 by 12s in the cell room windows. Different door styles, too. Panel doors inside the house. Plank doors for things like the coal chute.
And the trim inside, around the windows and doors.
Again, fancier in the residence. Plain 6-inch pacing, but with a molding. Baseboards were 8 inches with moldings. In the cell room, though, just plain 1 by 6 casing with a simple beveled edge. Much more utilitarian.
Consistent theme there, floors and ceilings.
Residence floors were nice, 78-inch millworked flooring, secret nailed so you don't see the nails.
Right.
The cell room ceiling was also 78-inch tongue and groove, secret nailed. Always specifying seasoned, defect-free lumber.
Even the stairs got specific instructions.
Both sets. Cellar stairs were basic, open risers, thick plank treads. The main stairs in the residence were more finished. Proper risers, treads, support carriages, newel posts, handrails, all detailed. 3 coats specified for all the outside wood, using white lead and linseed oil. 3 coats for inside wood, too, and 1 coat for the metal roofs and gutters. And the glass itself specified as best double thick, properly bedded in putty, trimmed back puttied. Good quality installation.
And finally, that catch-all clause for the contractor.
Right, the general conditions. Basically said the contractor had to provide everything needed for a complete building, whether it was explicitly shown or not. If it was necessary, it was included. No excuses.
Okay, that covers the building itself. Now, the main event. Exhibit A, the cells. The Pauly patented steel cage.
This is the core security feature. 3 cells, plus the corridor running in front of them, all steel-clad, built using P.J. Pauly's patents.
And those patents covered what exactly?
3 main things mentioned. First, the steel itself, hardened steel bars with a annealed and iron center, claimed to be saw and file-proof. Second, the lathing process, layering these bars onto the iron plate. And third, their special lever lock.
Got it. How big were these cells? Sounds like they weren't huge.
Pretty compact. 6.5 feet wide, 8 feet deep, 7 feet high. Standard height, but not a lot of floor space. The corridor in front was 5 feet wide and ran the length of all 3 cells, so 19.5 feet long, same 7-foot height.
And what were they made of? The walls, floor, ceiling?
Heavy iron plate, 3/16 of an inch thick jail plate. Joints were butted together and strapped on the outside. Angle iron used at all the corners, inside and out.
All held together with rivets.
Yeah, 38-inch rivets, spaced pretty close every 3 to 3.5 inches. And crucially, the heads were countersunk on the inside.
So prisoners couldn't easily grind them off or tamper with them.
That was the idea. Made the interior surface smoother and more secure.
Okay, now explain this lathing.
Yeah.
How did that work? What did it add?
This was a key part of the Pauly patent. They took those special hardened steel bars about 2 inches wide, 38-inch thick, and essentially embedded them under the outer layer of the iron plate or angle iron.
Like a hidden grid.
Exactly. Running horizontally or vertically, spaced about 5 inches apart, riveted through the main plate every 6 inches. So if someone managed to drill or cut through the outer iron plate,
They'd hit the super hard saw-proof steel bar.
right, a secondary layer of defense integrated into the structure.
Clever. What about light and air? Any openings besides the door?
Yes, at the back of each cell there was a large lattice section, basically a window grill, running floor to ceiling about 2 feet wide.
Made of?
Made of more hardened steel bars, these ones specified as 2 inches by half an inch thick, so slightly beefier than the lathing bars. They crossed at right angles, riveted at every single intersection with half-inch rivets, again, countersunk on the inside. The openings were small, about 2.5 by 2.5 inches, just enough to let in air and light.
So heavily barred openings. And the cell doors.
2 feet wide, 6 feet high. Built the same way as the walls of plate iron lathed with the hardened bars. They have a small slot near the bottom, 4.5 by 6.5 inches, probably for passing food through.
How are they hung and locked? Seems critical.
Hung on heavy pivot hinges, specifically noted as being protected by hardened steel bars. They closed into a hardened steel catch. And then across the middle of the door, a big, thick latch bar, 4 inches wide, 38-inch thick, made of that patent hardened steel, riveted formally to the door. This bar was designed to take a padlock.
Okay, padlock for individual locking. What about the front of the whole cell block, the corridor?
That was mostly open grating. The entire front and the entrance end, except where the lock mechanism box was made of that hardened steel lattice work. 2 by 38-inch bars, crossing, riveted, countersunk inside. The mesh openings here were a bit bigger, maybe 3 by 4.5 inches, so you could see through it easily.
And the door into that corridor.
Also, steel lattice work, 2.5 feet wide, 7 feet high, reinforced inside with angle iron, hung like the cell doors. This door had the main lock interface. A thick iron plate on the outside held a massive slide bolt made of hardened steel and iron.
And that bolt slid into
What?
into the main lever box for the locking system. But that wasn't the only lock on the corridor door.
Oh, more
Right.
security. Yeah, there was another slide bolt lower down on the inside face of the corridor wall plate. This one slid over the bottom edge of the door and was secured with a padlock, placed so it was out of reach from the inside of the corridor.
Double locking the corridor door with one lock inaccessible from within. Okay, now the big one. The patent lever lock system. How did that work?
This was the central control. Each of the 3 cell doors had Pauly's mechanism that shot heavy bolts into the frame at the top and bottom.
Okay.
All 3 doors were connected to one lever. This lever was housed inside a heavy iron lever box, and the box itself was locked with a serious lock described as a live tumbler wrought iron lock
Hang
with a
on.
combination to close keyhole.
A combination lock just to get to the lever?
Seems so. You needed the combo to open the keyhole, then presumably a key for the lock. Then you could move the lever that operated the bolts on all 3 cell doors simultaneously.
And in addition to that, each cell door still had its own padlock on that central latch bar.
That's right. 2 independent locking methods per cell. The central lever system controlling top-bottom bolts, and the individual padlock on the main latch bar.
Wow. That sounds complicated but secure. Did they explain how the jailer actually used it day to day?
Yes. The newspaper article from October '79 spells it out. It really highlights the jailer's safety aspect they were promoting.
Okay, walk us through it. Unlocking time.
Right. Step 1. Jailer enters the outer corridor, the space outside the steel cage, between it and the building's brick wall.
Okay.
Step 2. Jailer goes along the front of the cells and removes the individual padlocks from each door's latch bar.
Still outside the cage, just reaching through the grating?
Presumably.
Yeah.
Step 3. Jailer leaves the outer corridor, closes and locks the main corridor entrance door.
Locks himself out before unlocking the cells.
Exactly. Step 4. Now he goes to the lever box, opens its lock, combination and key, and pulls the lever. Clunk. The top and bottom bolts on all 3 cell doors retract. Doors are unlocked.
So the jailer is never in that outer corridor space when the cell doors themselves are actually unlocked. Smart.
That was the whole point. The newspaper stressed this. The jailer never needs to come in contact with the prisoners, and hence is secure from attack.
Makes sense. How about locking them back up?
Basically the reverse. Prisoners go into cells, close the doors, jailer pushes the lever back clunk, bolts engage, locks the lever box, then the jailer enters the outer corridor again.
Now it's safe because the main bolts are thrown.
Right. Goes to each cell door, puts the heavy padlock back on the latch bar, leaves the outer corridor, locks the corridor entrance door securely, both the main slide bolt and that secondary lower one, closes and locks the lever box. Done.
It sounds quite involved, but the safety aspect is clear.
The newspaper really played it up. They even claimed it was so simple, a lady or even a child can handle the prisoners with perfect safety. Maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but the principle was sound.
What else was inside the cells besides steel? Any furniture?
Bunks. But not solid beds. Each cell had 4 sets of angle iron frames designed to swing hammocks from.
4 per cell, so potentially 12 prisoners total in the 3 main cells.
Match of the bid language, yeah. And the hammocks were specified too. 28 inches wide, made of heavy Norder 4 ducking canvas, hung with cord, attached with leather straps and buckles. Gives you a feel for it. And sanitation. What about waste? Each cell had a foul air duct in one corner, made of iron plate. It had 2 shifters, like sliding vents, one near the top for air draft and one near the bottom.
Yeah.
Specifically described as large enough to receive a night bucket.
Wow, a dedicated night bucket slot in the ventilation duct. Very specific.
Very specific. These ducts piped up to the roof. Separate from that, there was a water closet system. A big iron tank on top of the corridor supplied water to a privy sink and a brass tap for drinking water. Likely a shared facility access from the corridor.
And how did water get up to that tank?
An anti-freezing force pump at the well or cistern outside, connected by a rubber hose maybe 30 feet long.
And the hose had another use.
Yeah, the specs mentioned it came with a nozzle not just for filling the tank or sprinkling, but specifically for extinguishing of fires.
So the water supply hose doubled as the fire hose. Resourceful again.
I think so.
And the finish on the cells? Paint.
1 coat of mineral paint at the factory, then another coat after installation on site.
And the overall quality standard.
Had to be best in every particular, satisfying the county commissioners completely. They wanted top of the line for their money.
Okay, so an incredibly detailed plan, cutting-edge 1870s security tech, focus on jailer safety. How did it all turn out? What was the reaction when it was finished?
The local newspaper reports from October 1879 were glowing. The building was finished and accepted by the commissioners just before the paper came out.
And they liked it.
They loved it, called it a model of neatness. They even commented on the outside saying it had an attractive appearance, looked more the appearance of a handsome dwelling than a jail.
High praise. Not the forbidding image you might expect.
Right. The paper noted the cost came in just under $10,000, and the county paid cash. Pauly's agents apparently headed straight off to their next job in Massachusetts. The press was especially impressed by the cells. Pauly's celebrated patent steel-clad jail cells, the strongest made. They hit all the key points again. Room for 4 prisoners per cell, those inviting-looking hammocks if you ignored the bars, the ventilation, the tool-defying hardened steel.
Did they mention the saw and file-proof claim again?
Oh yeah. Called the plate work absolutely saw and file-proof. They praised the ventilation, the water system for cleanliness. They summed it up with Pauly's 3 points: security, sanitation, and jailer safety.
Sounds like a huge success. Case closed, perfectly secured jail built.
Well, this is where the story takes a turn, based on later sources. Despite all that high-tech steel, the saw and file-proof claims, the complex locks, prisoners did escape.
No! How? Did they saw through the bars after all?
Nope, that's the fascinating part. The escapes we found records of didn't defeat the patented Pauly steel at all. Take a guy named Henderson, escaped in 1904.
What did he do?
He dug through the brick wall of the outer corridor. He wasn't even locked in one of the main steel cells, just in the corridor space between the cage and the building wall.
So he attacked the standard building structure, not the high-security core.
Exactly. And his tools. Reportedly, a piece of a stove poker and part of a bucket handle. The newspaper dryly noted it would be but a short job for one man to work out the mortar from between the bricks.
Wow. All that fancy steel defeated by crumbling mortar and a poker. Any other escapes like that?
Yep. August 1906, 2 more prisoners, King and Thompson. They got out by going through the roof.
Through the roof, again, bypassing the cells completely.
Right. These escapes, plus reports that the jail conditions weren't great by the early 1900s, they were calling it the old jail, by then led to talk about building a completely new one.
Did they?
It seems they considered it. Pauly Jail Building Company is still around. Even drew up plans in 1906 for a different 2-story design. But a notice from 1907 talks about repairing the existing jail, not replacing it. So maybe they patched it up instead.
And the building itself, structurally, did it hold up okay over the long haul?
There were issues there too, separate from escapes. Reports from 1907, especially 1955, mention problems with the residence part. The south wall was apparently bulging outwards.
Why?
They blamed the weight of a cupola, a decorative structure on the roof. In 1955, they actually had to do major repairs, which included removing the cupola and rebuilding part of that wall. So standard construction aging and stress took a toll as well.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we started with these incredibly detailed 1879 plans for what seemed like a state-of-the-art county jail.
Yeah, and we've seen the whole life cycle. The public vote, the specialized builder, the focus on saw-proof steel and lever locks, the intricate details from foundation stone to night bucket vents.
We saw the initial pride, the model of neatness, the handsome dwelling appearance.
But then, reality bites. The escapes didn't happen through the high-tech steel, but through the ordinary brick walls, the roof. And the building itself eventually showed structural wear and tear.
So the takeaways are pretty interesting. You see the incredible planning that went into even a county project back then. You see the focus on the core security, the cells using the best tech they had.
But you also see that security is a chain. And the weakest link wasn't the fancy patented part. It was the standard construction around it, or maybe just time and weather. It's a great picture of technology, human ingenuity, both in building and escaping, and how things actually play out over decades.
All those details, the rivet spacing, the bush-hammered stone, the type of canvas for hammocks, they really do paint a picture.
Makes you think, doesn't it? All our modern security, crazy encryption, biometric scanners, super strong materials. What's the equivalent of the 1879 brick wall or the roof? What's the seemingly mundane thing around it all that might, decades from now, turn out to be the unexpected vulnerability? Maybe it won't be a sophisticated attack, but something simple, something overlooked, or just something slowly failing that provides the way through.